to everybody. It's a great pleasure to be working for the World Access to Higher Education Network. I'm here because I'm Secretary General of the Magna Charta Observatory and also a member of the advisory board of WAHEN. Some of you may not have heard of WAHEN, but you would almost certainly have heard of the World Access to Higher Education Days, which took place for a number of years before WAHEN was formed. And indeed, the most recent one of these was in Cape Town, which continued amazingly despite power outages, although one of the consequences of those power outages was that we were not able to take some of the remote inputs. But it's an ill wind, and that ill wind has blown good to us today because we will be here in 3 of them. Just a short word links between Magna Charta Observatory and WAHEN. The Magna Charta Universitatum, a fundamental document about values in higher education, now signed by over 1,000 people, universities from 94 different countries. It has 2 short sentences which are very important. Education is a human right, a public good, and should be available to all. Universities recognise that learning is a lifelong activity, with tertiary education as one part of a continuum. Within that one part, universities serve diverse learners at all stages of their lives. And universities acknowledge that individuals and communities, often due to inequitable circumstances, have difficulty gaining access to higher education or influencing the modes and matter of academic study. To realise human potential everywhere, universities deliberately seek ways to welcome and engage with diverse voices and perspectives. Well, this afternoon we are to hear from 3 people working to improve access to higher education. 2 of them are from Yorkshire, and one of them is from Zimbabwe. And in the case of our first presenter, what we're going to do, as she has a teaching commitment to honour, she will speak, and then you will have the opportunity to put questions, and please do put them in the Q&A function. And then when Camilla has left us, we will take the other 2 and then have a final period of questions and discussions. But Camilla Priede is from the University of Sheffield, and she's from a project, Life Experience to Academic Excellence, providing foundations for success at Sheffield. Camilla, over to you. You're muted.
Thanks very much. I'm just going to share my slides. I'll be one second. Can someone tell me if that is showing? You can now see the slideshow.
No.
No. Oh no. Okay. I'm not. Is there any way, because I know I'd sent in my slides, because is there any way that you would be able to show them, Imogen? I'm really sorry. I've tried sharing my PowerPoint and it just doesn't seem to be wanting to play ball. Okay. Okay, I can now see the PowerPoint. Is that you or me that's showing? Me. Okay, fabulous. So if we could just have the overview slide, please. Thanks. So yeah, sorry about this. So hi, I'm Camilla Priede. I'm here from the lifelong learning team at the University of Sheffield, where I'm going to be talking about our foundation year program, where we have where we work with learners from really diverse range of background. I'm going to talk to you a bit about our program, about our students, a bit about how we work to make sure with these students that it's the right thing for them. And then once they're on the course, how do we prepare them for success at one of the best universities in the UK? I think I've been told I must say that. Anyway, can I have the next slide? So just to explain a bit about what foundation years are, I think one of the things we struggle with sometimes in education is not having enough words to describe things. And so foundation years are used in a number of ways. In the UK, when you're a young child and you first start at school, you're in your foundation year. If you're a doctor and you've just graduated, you're in your foundation year. But also you have this type of foundation year. They are year zero of a university degree, and they can serve a number of purposes. In England, in particular, our school curriculum is very, very narrow. And so some foundation years are for people who have done the highest level of qualification, but in the wrong subject. So they may have done an arts degree, arts A levels, but they want to do a science degree. You might have it for that. You might have a year zero for people who just haven't quite got the grades to get into their institution. Or there are specific foundation years like our one, which are to provide access to groups that have missed out in higher education before. In the UK, they're known as foundation years. International comparisons include university access programs, which you have in Ireland. And in the Southern Hemisphere, there are bridging programs in Australia and New Zealand. So if those are the vocabulary that you're familiar with, they are broadly comparable to those. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. So lifelong learning has a long tradition at the University of Sheffield. The university itself it's over 100 years old, and it was founded by the people of Sheffield, for Sheffield to have a university, by people giving money from their wages. It has a proud tradition of adult access. And our foundation years are specifically designed for mature learners. So, and this, as I get older, this number makes me think that's really not very old. But in the UK, everyone over 21 is a mature student, and specifically mature students who've had a long break from education. So they may have been having a family, they may have been working, they may have been traveling, they may have had all sorts of things going on, and then they can come to us. We've been running since 2014 in this iteration. We have an annual cohort, an annual group of students of around 120 to 150, and it's over 38 subject pathways. Can we have the next slide? So I'm not going to read this all out, but just to explain, it really is what we call a transdisciplinary curriculum. You can do everything from philosophy or law to biomedical science and business management. We add new pathways all the time, in particular in relation to skills gaps in the region and degrees that we're finding a large number of people are asking for. So, for example, our newest program is a pharmacy program, which is designed to upskill pharmacy technicians. We've also recently added nursing, which is leading to a real uptick in our student numbers at the moment. I will talk a bit more about how we teach students when they're on this program, how it's structured. But first of all, I will talk a bit about how we actually get students on the course. So if we could have the next slide. So, I mean, one of the, I would say, tricky things about higher education in England and Wales is that it does, if a student signs up for higher education, there are fees attached. These are normally paid for via a student loan, but at the same time, to recruit ethically, we do need to make sure that a student is ready to succeed. I'm aware that there are other parts of the world where similar programs, for example, bridging programs, may have no fees attached. We're unfortunately not in that. We're not in that world, but we're in a place where we want to have access as wide as possible, but only for people who have a realistic chance of success. So therefore, we have no fixed entry requirements. You don't have to have a specific qualification, unless, for example, our nurses need to have English and maths qualifications because they're required by the accrediting council for that profession. So instead, what we do is we interview all applicants. We sit down with them and we aim to find out whether we're right for them as much as they're right for us. We use what's called a strengths-based approach. So we ask students what they're like when they're at their best, what they enjoy about the subject, what skills they've gained from their work, how they've overcome difficulties. And it tends to, we understand from our students that it leaves them feeling quite buoyed up and quite feeling like someone's listened to them, someone's heard them, and someone gets why they're excited. Our entry requirements, like I say, we don't have fixed qualifications, but we do require applicants to demonstrate that they've got the potential to succeed on what is a very intensive program. So we look at their life experience, we look at their work experience, what sort of things have they already done in their life. We also we make sure that they've got a real understanding of the course, that they know what that subject looks like as a university subject. What does psychology look like? What does law look like? We also, in a sort of more prosaic way, we look at, have they actually thought what it takes to be a full-time student? Have you thought about the fact this will be the equivalent of a full-time job? How can you, I often talk about I say this as a mother, lower your family's expectations in terms of what you're going to do for them. But also, how are you going to commute? Where are you going to live? How are you going to find meaningful time to really get your brain stuck into independent academic study as well as attending classes? We also do have entry tests of maths and English just to make sure that people are operating at a level where they'll be able to get the sort of reading that's required for university study done. So that's really how we recruit. Can I just have the next slide? And in terms of our curriculum, it's designed in a way that we group learners together and we get people thinking about their core skills. So skills everyone needs, the sort of academic literacy, critical thinking, searching, information analysis, confidence in presentations, all of those sorts of things go into the academic literacy module. They all do maths and statistics. It's relevant for all degree tracks and all life skills. Again, in the UK, we have a particular issue where often the school teaching of mathematics leaves people thinking that, one, they can't do maths, and two, it's of no relevance to them. So we really work to try and develop their confidence and also help them see the relevance in maths. They also do an extended project, which is normally an essay where they work one-on-one with an academic in the degree that they're going to go into to do a project based on something of interest to their degree. So to give one example, I look after environmental science students, and one of them worked with an academic to review the information about what happens when sharks are removed from the ecosystem, what happens to other species. And they did a really lovely extended essay based on that. They also do introductory modules and some subject-specific modules. There's a range of assessments, everything from multiple choice tests, presentations, through to essays, and a small amount of exams, just to make sure that they've experienced everything that they will at the institution. I think I've got one more slide just to go. So in terms of how we work with our learners, we're fortunate enough to be able to work quite closely with small groups of learners. So every Wednesday lunchtime, each academic will work with their tutor group. So I have about 15 students who I work closely with in those times, and we try and sort of convey these really key messages. So one, that to be a good student is not to be the student who goes away and does it all themselves, but to be a good student is the one that goes, help, I'm stuck. And I'm very much stuck with this. And gaining that confidence to be able to ask for help is really, really important. And also alongside that, be curious. Be brave enough to be curious about what do I actually want to find out about, and how can I find that out, and what are the tools for that? And also allow that curiosity and that ability to ask for help to sometimes trust us sometimes. Because sometimes we'll be asking our learners to do things that they just don't see the point in. And sometimes we will say, look, you don't understand this now, but in 6 months' time, when you're a bit further along your foundation year journey, you will get why we're doing this. Another two things that really go in hand are the need to be realistic. We find a number of our learners come to us as perfectionists because they've waited some time. So some of these are students who've come to us. Some of these are students who've come to us after a very long break, either because they've been raising families. We have about 10% of our learners are refugees. So they've been waiting a long time to become settled in the UK. And often if they've been waiting 10 years, 20 years to be a student, they want to be the best student ever. And trying to persuade people it's okay. Sometimes we're all at 80% sometimes. Sometimes we're at 50%. Try not to make yourself 100% all the time. The foundation year makes the English degree system into a 48-month journey. You're not going to be perfect for all that time, so please be realistic. And alongside that, it also involves that compassion. So that self-compassion, that recognizing that sometimes you're not going to be at your best, and sometimes other people aren't going to be at their best. And if we all work together as a compassionate community, we will get there in the end. But do see it as a journey where others will support you and you will support others. And I think I will stop there. I will just, there's a final slide with my contact details if anyone wants them.
Well, Camilla, thank you very much indeed for that. I've got to say, I love how practical it is. I love how person-centered it is. And I love the fact that you have the different disciplines together. So a question, if I may, to what extent do you use the fact that all of the disciplines are together to sort of broaden the study experience that students on the foundation programme have?
I mean, I think, and when we were chatting beforehand, I mentioned that my own background's in archaeology, and I do feel like archaeologists are the ultimate magpies in that you sort of pick bits of disciplines you're interested in and then apply them to the past. And that's very much one of the approaches I take to my own teaching, is to get people to consider a big topic and then think about what's of interest to me and what do I know about it and how can I contribute those skills to others. So the class I'm going to teach at 3 o'clock, we're going to be starting to think about climate change It's going to be a classroom with everyone from environmental science who, if they've done the reading, will be familiar with some of the sort of Milankovitch cycles and things like that, whereas we'll have other people who've been doing things that are more like anthropology, and we'll be trying to bring that together to think about how do we solve some global challenges. So we really do, we sort of foreground it with the students that this is transdisciplinary, this is problem focused, inquiry based, and we're going to work together on it.
Yeah. We have a question in the chat. Have you ever considered running this on a part-time basis?
So I should say we do actually have a part-time program. We used to have a very lifelong learning's had a long history at Sheffield. It used to very much be part-time focused, and essentially in 2012 in the UK there was a big change in how university fees were paid, fees were funded, and at that time part-time fees in particular escalated a lot. So when the foundation program is being recorded. When the foundation program started in 2014, we had 25 full-time students, 25 part-time students. At the moment, I think this year we have 157 full-time students and 2 part-time students. So we do offer it as a part-time option, but it's just not very popular at the moment. I'm trying to, I think because when I first started adult learning teaching in 2009, it was in night school. My heart is still there. I would like it to come back, but at the moment, the people don't want to learn at night.
And just a last question before we move on. What's the experience so far about the success of the scheme or the impact of the scheme? And I'm happy for you to answer that either from the perspective of the university or the students or both.
I think there's been so many impacts from the scheme. One of the issues we have with foundation years is because it's the start of a long journey, you don't often know how it's gone until several years later. But because we've now been running since 2014, we can see that we have a real track record of really strong graduates going on, getting great, both graduate outcomes, but also people who are first in their family to go to university, who are then inspiring their children to go into higher education, or members of their community. And that's one of the things, because I'm the admissions lead for this program, and one of the things I really love is when we have someone who comes along and goes, actually, the reason I'm here is because so-and-so told me about it, and they told me it would be right for me because I did it. And so there's that sort of success, the success for the students. I'd say we're also influencing the entire institution. Again, UK, England, English and Welsh universities, to be able to charge the fees we do, have to have an access and participation plan. Yeah. And actually, the most recent iteration of the University of Sheffield's access and participation plan focuses on 2 things. One of them is around mature students, and the institution working proactively to ensure that outcomes for all mature students are as good as the outcomes for the students who've gone through the foundation year. And so the institution as a whole is putting on more emphasis on the fact that mature learners, they're not sort of different and scary and other, but often they've got busy lives. They've got other things going on. To choose to be a mature learner is to choose to swim against the tide. 18, often it's the easy choice to go to university. It's not the easy choice at 36 or whatever. And so they do need a bit more support. And I'd say that one of our real successes is I think we've managed to persuade the institution that it really is important to do this.
Well, Camilla, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks so much for having me.
There is another question up in the chat, but it's probably best that we respond, or you could respond to that on the sort of typing thing. And can I just finally wish you every success with the scheme, both personally and students who are on it.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Okay, so we go now to Zimbabwe and we bring in Sithandekile. I hope that's pronounced approximately correctly, but Sithandekile is from Bulawayo Polytechnic, and the title of her presentation is Innovative Pathways, Successes and Lessons in Lifelong Learning. So over to you. Over to you.
Thank you so much for, I'm glad to have joined. I'm trying to, I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yes, thank you. I just want to share my screen. Thank you very much for hosting me. Mine is a working paper. It's a working paper titled Innovative Pathways, Successes and Lessons in Lifelong Learning. Have I managed to share?
Not yet. We've a black screen and it's asking you to double click to enter full screen mode.
Thank you so much. Let me try.
Do you have a copy of this? Ah, yes.
We are there.
Now we see it.
Stay. All right. Thank you so much. Yes. It's a working paper. Like I have said, it's a working paper on lifelong learning skills where I'm doing a research to see how much our institutions of higher learning are moving towards lifelong learning, whether they are introducing it, starting with the first slide, the second slide, where we are saying the introduction of lifelong learning, where we are saying it's continuous, voluntary, self-motivated learning, where we incorporate our learners, we reach out to them at their level. And why are we saying it's important? Because it enhances skills, adaptability, and overall quality of life. If we move to this next slide, we are saying, why is there any need for lifelong learning? The demographic changes pushes people to engage in extra, and those people, most of the time, they are not incorporated in the mainstream curricula. They need to be deliberate effort to include them. There are social equity, where we are saying we are bridging the gap in education and employment opportunities. That's why we talk about lifelong learning. There is also the issue of technological shift, where we are saying we now have AI, the industries are changing. We need to upgrade how we do our things, hence the need for lifelong learning. And as I was doing my research to see how do we engage these older learners, because what I have realized is that, especially in developing countries, those people who engage in lifelong learning, they would not fit into the mainstream. Online courses and hybrid modules are the ones that can reach them because of their lifestyle, the way they are. Some of them will be working mothers, but they still need to engage in learning. We can engage them through evening or weekend classes so that they can maybe go to work, or they don't have enough O levels to join others in the mainstream, or they use modular learning, where we are saying we need to, each module, they need to specialize in each module and finish first. Then as I was going through my literature, I found the University of Namibia to have made a deliberate effort to focus on adult education, where the key initiatives concentrate on community-based learning programs, where they look at the community needs and offer the programs that solve the issues of that community using those who do not fit into the mainstream curriculum. Their efforts are deliberate and their methods is flexible at times and becomes a good case study, especially for African countries to follow. Then I got another case of University of Phoenix where they've got flexible online programs taking into account that the internet is now penetrating even in African countries. So many people have got smartphones, they've got access to the internet. They can use those gadgets to incorporate adults or those who cannot get into the mainstream to have qualifications to gain knowledge of whatever course that they wish.
This meeting is being recorded.
The key features are that it's flexible, there is personalized support, because these learners that we are talking about, they've got different needs and they adapt to different settings. That's why some have got online, they can have evening classes, or they can do them on weekends. Sorry. Then we have got this other case study that I came about, the Erasmus program in the European Union, where it incorporates, it does not have an age limit and is inclusive, because most of these programs or scholarships that are there, they've got an age limit to say maybe 30, 35, but there are some people who don't fit in those age groups, but they have dreams and they want to learn. So I've found that it's very successful because it deals with cultural exchange and language skills. It's so mobile that it helps its students to have different cultures as they learn, and it does not have an age limit, which fits well into this lifelong learning because it includes everyone. Then we have got how do we promote? So we've got the challenges in engaging in lifelong learning. We have got the digital divide, where we are saying as much as the internet can help us, especially as African countries, we still have access to digital tools and platforms is still lacking. The barriers to entry as marginalized groups, some people are in the remote areas, they don't have access, but they still want to learn. There's also the issue of time constraints, where the person have got work commitments,
this meeting is being recorded,
family commitments, even financial barriers as still an issue. That's why some of the learners find themselves not being able to incorporate it into the mainstream because they would not have the resources to join the others. How can we promote lifelong learning as institutions? We need to develop partnerships with local businesses and training programs. We also need to create micro-credential systems that are now in place as higher learning institutions. We need to invest in that so that we can attract those learners and incorporate them. We have got the competence-based learning, where we are saying we let them self-pace so that we don't push them, let them do modular, let them do at their own pace, but at the same time, we give them the support they need. And the government initiatives are that there should be mentorship programs in the learning institutions so that they are able to cater for those who cannot join the mainstream. Or they can also have grants and subsidies to promote. Or they can also have grants and subsidies to promote adult education, as I said, is still a working paper. I'm in the process of collecting literature. But what I have realized so far, especially in Zimbabwe, we are still way behind. Though there are some pockets of effort, but we still need to do more. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much indeed. And your ghosts, your technological ghosts that are somewhere in the ether between Zimbabwe and us in the United Kingdom. I said that we would go straight on to our final presentation and then take questions and discussion at the end of that. So can we go now to Fiona Chapel, who is from the University of Leeds, whose presentation is called JumpStart, Bridging the Gap Between Adult Education and University. Fiona, over to you.
Thank you very much, David. Hi, everybody. I will just share my presentation to start with. Is that okay? Can everyone see it?
That is fine. You might want to go to full screen.
Yes, I will do. Is that okay?
That is good.
And you can hear me? Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me, everybody. Yes, so my name is Fiona. I work as the Communities and Partnerships Manager at the Lifelong Learning Centre at the University of Leeds. And going to talk about just a little bit of background. I think actually Camilla did a good job filling everybody in earlier, because the universities of Sheffield and Leeds are quite similar, and also geographically not that far apart. So you already have a bit of an overview of the context. So the current UK landscape for adult education, the Lifelong Learning Centre at the University of Leeds itself, and then just kind of what this presentation will do is we'll zoom in on the JumpStart pre-entry taster course and kind of how we run it, and that connection between community-based adult education and pathways into university. And then just I've got some reflections and evaluation of the kind of feedback and impact to share at the end. So first of all, a little bit about the kind of current UK landscape, which people in the UK will be familiar with. But if you're not within the UK, you may not be quite so familiar with. Really, this is the first bullet point is a report from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, highlighting the, as they say, the stubbornly high levels of hardship. So the people that we're working with are people who are being most affected by the cost of living crisis, by levels of poverty and all the associated difficulties and hardships with that. And coupled with that is the ongoing cuts to adult and further education, which have just been cut and cut, really. So they're now 50% lower than they were in 2009 to 10. So that's the spending, the government spending on adult and further education. And that's very important to us in our work, because we're engaging with adults who may be in some kind of education. And it's also obviously incredibly important for people who want to get on the ladder of education. It is the bottom rings of the ladder that in many ways have been cut. So moving on a little bit about the University of Leeds. This is our main entrance, the Parkinson building. So you can see it's quite a kind of dominating place within the skyline in Leeds. It was established in 1904, so it's one of the Russell Group universities, of which there's about 24, I might be wrong, but they're kind of self-selecting research-intensive universities, renowned globally for the quality of research and training. They are selective, so there's a competitive application process. I think it's fair to say the majority of students who come to Leeds University are coming straight from school, and they're being expected to get the highest grades within their A levels, the school leaving qualifications. So within the University of Leeds, we're part of the Lifelong Learning Centre. So the Lifelong Learning Centre was started in 2005 at the University of Leeds, but actually we were doing this work before this as part of what was then the School for Continuing Education, which was when I first joined the university. And then before that, this work has been going on since the 40s, really, the kind of extramural work. And it's very much that local based work, connecting with communities, providing accessible routes into university. So a little kind of brief overview of the Lifelong Learning Centre. We have our own programmes. So we have multidisciplinary programmes. We have some part-time degrees and we have a full-time degree. We also have a number of foundation years which are accessible for 18-year-olds as well as adults that lead across the university, lead into all the different degrees. Our other function is as a specialist service supporting mature and part-time learners across the university. So we have a dedicated skills team and other types of support for mature students. So our particular courses are for people who don't have traditional qualifications, and we offer high levels of support on our courses because we appreciate that we're working with people who might not have been in education for a long time or might not have been in education very much and may not have had a positive experience of it. And as part of all this, our team, the Communities and Partnerships team, we work with people who have not yet come to university. So we take very much a community engaged outreach approach to it. We work in a very detailed, kind of hyper local way, I would say, with local voluntary and statutory organisations and education providers, particularly around the Leeds area. So that also encompasses Wakefield and Bradford. So within the West Yorkshire kind of sub-region, for people that know that. Okay, so moving on to our particular kind of pre-entry work and our ethos. I always think this photo kind of sums it up. So you can see this is a picture of the university in the background, and it was taken by one of our pre-entry participants on our JumpStart course, which I'll explain in a minute. Oh, sorry, was there a question?
No, just carry on.
All right, I'll carry on. And it was taken by one of our participants who lives in the local area around Leeds, which is an area of low participation in university. And it kind of sums up how we try and approach the university. We try and empathise and take the perspective of people who have not been allowed in, people who've not been traditionally students at university, and develop our work accordingly from that. So we try and provide, we start off really talking to people and providing things that will be useful and add value to what might be important to them. And I will go on to talk a little bit about examples. We take very much a strengths-based approach. So we are really valuing the life skills and any other skills that people are bringing to education. Part of our aim is to develop mutually beneficial partnerships. So we take a very kind of long-term sustainable view of our work. We're very aware of the fact we're this great big university in the middle of Leeds. So we're always considering the ethics of how we work. And sometimes we are working with very small community groups, with people who may not be getting paid. We might be working with groups who are supporting asylum seekers and refugees. We might be working with groups who've been disadvantaged and not have opportunities in many, many different ways. So we have to consider that all the time. And really our aim is to kind of open up the possibilities for people around education. So for us, this is a photo of one of our partners' thank you kind of events. For us, partnerships are our key. Really, we're quite relational in the way we work. We have long-term partnerships with the third sector and also the public sector, so the local authority, as well as further education colleges. So this gives a few examples of the types of groups we work with. So I mentioned refugees and asylum seekers, but also parent support groups. We work a lot with people who've experienced the criminal justice system, carers and foster carers, people in recovery from alcohol and drugs, mental health support groups, and geographically local community centres. So really where there are groups of people, we would want to work with them in different ways. And then other education and training providers, like I said, further education colleges, council, and then the combined authorities, which are more regionally devolved powers. So this really kind of encapsulates the way that we work at the Lifelong Learning Centre. We try to represent here that we almost have a continuum of activities in a very graduated way. Excuse me. So starting on the left, we might go and visit a group in their community and talk to them and listen to them about what we could possibly help with or add value. And then from there, we might take a very bespoke approach and organise a trip to the university campus so they can have a look round, they can meet some of our students. We have an incredible group of volunteer mature students from similar backgrounds who will share their journeys, and that's really powerful for people to hear. The kind of idea, I did it, you can do it. And then moving on from that kind of very informal approach, we have more kind of scheduled in events. So we have taster sessions, taster days. We have a 3-day adult autumn school now. And we also have our 8-week JumpStart taster course. And then running through all of this, with this arrow at the bottom, is our free advice and guidance service. So we were really lucky that we've had that for many years. And this is free, confidential, impartial advice and guidance to anyone over 19 who hasn't had an opportunity to go to university. So really, we want people to have that experience of what higher education is like, but also get the facts for themselves and how it's going to relate to them. We're not trying to particularly push Leeds University. It's very much about putting education out there as a possibility and then thinking what could be the options for people. And then we very often help people with the application process. So the JumpStart course itself, I'm just thinking, I'm not sure how I'm doing for time, so please do tell me if I've been talking too long.
No, you're doing fine. Just
okay, thank you. So I'll talk about the JumpStart course a bit. So this, as I said, is part of our kind of continuum of activities. It was developed through our partnership work with our further education college partners, who identified really that there was a gap between adults studying in community and like the knowledge and understanding of university. So it's really kind of has a number of different aims, I would say. One is to give people information about what the possibilities are. But I would say a key thing is to help people feel confident in themselves as learners, and that they can possibly move on if they want to. All our work is really carefully targeted, as we've said already. We interview every person who applies for JumpStart to make sure really that they're at the right level for them. Very often we might suggest that they maybe brush up on their English, perhaps if English isn't their first language, or maybe if they're not feeling that confident about their literacy. So we do a lot of referring to local college partners for maths and English. But I'll move on to talk about the approach in a little bit more detail. But you can see from this picture, we try and make it enjoyable and interactive, and just bring the fun into learning. So this is our community approach, and this is something we developed over the years, so I'll just kind of talk through it. So we take that community development approach, which very much starts and links with people's lived experience, so that whatever people are doing, it's relevant to them in some ways, and also they're bringing their own understanding and learning and strengths to the classroom. We draw on the ideas of really useful knowledge, so bringing in radical adult education, so education with a social purpose, that is kind of throughout all of our outreach work. And we particularly think about the idea of bringing in critical thinking and critical analysis in all of our work, but particularly in JumpStart. So drawing on the ideas really of Paulo Freire as education as potentially transformative. We're increasingly, we think about how we can be trauma informed and inclusive, and that again is always changing in how we make sure that we are. Again, confidence, really important throughout. And then creative pedagogy links back with trauma informed approach, but I think creative pedagogy is really important, so that if people are more relaxed and enjoying themselves, they learn more easily. So we do all sorts of different creative activities. So this is just an example of one creative activity that we do with each group. We do a photo voice project, and it's usually around the theme of education. So if people don't know what photo voice is or aren't familiar with it, photo voice is the idea of people taking photographs about a subject that's important to them and creating an exhibition with some text as well. And in what this can be used as well to create an exhibition where they might invite stakeholders, so they want to influence people. And again, this draws from the work of Paulo Freire and also feminist pedagogy. So it's really, it's a research method, but it's also a participatory photography tool. And again, people might be familiar in research. It's very much for people who are not heard or not given the space for their views to be heard. They may using photographs is a really great way of capturing their experience. So you can see this is what we do with JumpStart. We have a Padlet each time, and we don't actually have an exhibition, but we do share the photographs and work on the text. And it can be a incredibly, I would say, a deep way of learning and a slow way of learning. So people might be looking at each other's photos for a number of weeks and asking about it. And I think in terms of social learning, it's really important. So people can learn so much from each other. So you can see here, we've got such a range of different themes about the importance of intergenerational learning, the ideas of learning step by step. But also we find that people learn about different cultures and diverse backgrounds in this way. And that can, again, be the most powerful way of learning. So the JumpStart, like I said, the JumpStart course runs twice a year, and more we are trying to measure the impact of it. So I'm going to talk about the kind of qualitative impact that we have and also the quantitative impact. So we've been using kind of semantic analysis of the feedback to kind of work out what's important to people, and just you can see in terms of what people mention, the actual content is very important. The increased positive attitude towards higher education is another massive factor that people have reflected upon and thought about, and that they are feeling able to make an informed choice. And the other thing is the sense of belonging at a university. And I know in the UK, the idea of a sense of belonging is incredibly important. And it's really interesting that an 8-week course can create a sense of belonging, but people definitely do. And often JumpStart students stay in touch with each other while they're doing their degrees. So they might go off across the university into different departments, but they formed that kind of group already. So there's just some feedback. and it just, I suppose it illustrates some of the things that I've been trying to kind of pull out. We do a session around hegemony and Gramsci, and it very much resonates with people. I think many people kind of understand that in relation to their own situation. You look at questioning and the Socratic method, and again, just the kind of almost liberation that it's really good to ask questions, and that's what universities want. The idea of fact checking, looking for credible evidence, can really important. And of course, the love of education and what a powerful tool education can be. And I quite like this one. The course has been a space where my thoughts have power. And I think that's the beginning of a kind of transformational journey. I have vital opinions to make the world new and fight against persecution, which is a really strong statement, I think. And yeah, fantastic to read. Again, confidence is something that we measure, and I won't go through all of these, but again, it's kind of clear that for many people, they do feel that their confidence has been raised in different ways. So the quote about the minimum wage entry level job, it's like, now I can do anything I want, because people, as we know, can get stuck feeling that's all they can do. And also, I think highlights the barriers. Sometimes people feel that they're too old. And again, that's another thing that we really stress about, the life experience that people bring. It's really important. And on JumpStart, we have people of all ages from 19 to, I think last time we had somebody who was 75. So we have people of all different ages. Then just moving on to the quantitative impact. So we received some research funding a couple of years ago to measure confidence, and we've been actually continuing doing that for every single cohort, and it kind of comes out the same each time. So to start with, 74% of people, so the majority of people, complete the programme. We do try and make it as nice as possible. Like, we provide travel if we can. We provide lunch when we have daytime sessions. We are trying to be as welcoming as possible. Key outcome is the reported increase in self-confidence, which you can see, and then this tends to be constant with each cohort. And then usually we have about 50% of the group apply to higher education. They usually apply to the University of Leeds, but we're very clear that they don't have to just apply to University of Leeds. They sometimes apply to access courses at the local colleges or some of the other local universities. And then 65% of those start a course, and we are able to track people once they've started. So just to finish on a quote from somebody who did JumpStart a few years ago. This was actually an online version of the course. But I like the fact her daughter has told her, Mum, the more education you get, the more liberated you are. And that's going to be her mantra. So it's, and then she went on to do one of our degrees from that. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. And please do let me know if you've got any questions, and please do contact me if you'd like to.
Well, Fiona, thank you very much. You packed a huge amount into that presentation. We already have one question, which we will come to, but can I encourage colleagues on the call to put their questions in the Q&A function? And I want to work up to the confidence question, which I think is very important. And I want to go back first to Sithandekile. In your presentation, you spoke about the importance of developing partnerships. Partnerships, I'm guessing, with other organisations in your community. And from some work which we did at Magna Charta with students around the world, these partnerships seem to be hugely important in encouraging people to come to a university or to engage in one of these programs. Are you able to say a little bit more about the partnerships that you have and how well they work? I see you are muted. I am assuming you are still there. Well, we're not able to pursue that one for a minute, but maybe we can shortly. I think, Fiona, coming back to you, you used the word confidence, and I'm completely with you, because it's the confidence to come into a program like that. It's the effect that the program has in building that confidence still further. And we have a question in the chat. Do you feel that learner confidence is a limiting factor in recruitment to those courses? And I'll add a bit. If you do, what do you think we might do about that?
Yeah, thank you. I think confidence, is almost the most important thing, because if people think that they can't do it, why would they step across that door into the class or join the online session? And I think we have to really, really understand where people are coming from and what their experience might have been. So I think for us, we might be working with people in quite a kind of early stage within their communities and in a very kind of positive way. So I think it's helping people build confidence for some time before they might come to the JumpStart course. So it really is step by step. And I definitely think it's a limiting factor. I think you can put on all the courses you like, but if people don't feel confident enough to walk through the door or to join, then it's difficult. So I think that's where the importance of outreach comes into it, and working with people in their community to kind of help look at what education is and help people kind of identify the strengths and skills that they already have.
I think Sithandekile is now with us. Is that right? I see you've unmuted. No, we're still having a problem with that. Just taking, Fiona, your answer a little bit further and connecting it with the question that I'm trying to ask of our colleague. Sometimes it can be employers who encourage people to come along. Sometimes it can be community bodies that people work with. And the circle of the university being involved with them and encouraging others for the sort of mutual good of the students, the community, and so on, seems to me to be a very important one. To what extent at Leeds do you engage with the organisations from which your students come or which they might work with?
I think that's a really important point. We've always engaged with those organisations, and it's almost because we've engaged with them, that's why people come to us. So we engage not just with voluntary organisations, but also with further education colleges. So that might be typically where adults are studying at level 1 and level 2. We do a lot of work with adults who are studying at level 2 for their maths and English, particularly doing their GCSEs, which is the kind of qualification people at school might get when they're 15 and 16. And that is, I think, as Camilla might have said, really the most important qualification for adults if they're thinking about going on to higher education from that. So I don't think we couldn't really do our work without our partnerships. So we are always thinking about how we build our partnerships, how we create new partnerships, and how we kind of cherish and nurture the partnerships that we do have. And we are also aware that we are part of a very big, rich institution, and how we can, in some way, give back to our partnerships. So we are considering, I suppose, from the civic engagement perspective all the time. So we will sometimes work in partnership with an organisation, even if there doesn't immediately seem to be a kind of benefit, as in loads and loads of people wanting to go to university, but it's how we kind of can support that work. So that I would say there's definitely that social purpose. And I think that's something that universities in the UK are definitely kind of bringing to the fore, the idea of civic engagement and the university's responsibilities to its local communities, which is something that I would say we've always done at Leeds.
I think you have. Leeds, as I speak, is about 40 miles in front of me, and I know your university very well because one of my sons is a graduate of you. So yes, I can certainly identify with that. Imogen, is there a way of bringing, oh, it's just gone from my screen. There was a question there, but it's disappeared from my screen. So we can't.
I know that Sibanda or Moya is typing some answers.
Right.
There we go.
Hi.
Oh, I think it might be the microphone cutting in and out. I think we might.
All right. Okay.
I do have a question for both, and if Camilla was here, but if that's all right, because it's been mentioned before, sort of the idea of micro credentials, but also sort of interviewing prospective students rather than looking for official formal qualifications. Do you find that most lifelong learners are looking, for a specific, they've encountered a problem that says you must have GCSE maths, whatever, to complete this, or you must get a degree to do this? Or do you get many people who've just never really managed to, find themselves in a situation to gain a formal qualification and just don't even really know what the options are beyond the most common, you go to school, you go to uni, and then you're done pathway? So are they coming with a target in mind, or more of a, I know that there's something out there, I just don't know what it is sort of goal?
Would you like me to start, or?
Yes, you go first, Fiona.
Okay, thank you. I think for us, it very much depends at what point we engage people and their past experiences. So for lots of people we're working with, they don't know that much about university because they don't know people from their communities or their families who've been to university, so they don't know what the process is. And a lot of what we do is that kind of myth busting of anybody can go at any age. You don't have to have loads of qualifications, the finance side of things. So there's a lot of information for people to engage with. And I would say for the people we're working with, most of them wouldn't know what the entry requirements are. So we would spend quite a lot of time talking to people about what you can do to go to university. And like I say, we usually refer people to often maths and English at our local colleges. We do also have matriculation tests. So these are Leeds University's alternative kind of assessments, so that people don't always have to have their GCSEs. And we also have an alternative entry scheme for level 3. So we could have somebody with no qualifications, but lots of experience in a relevant area, who could access a degree immediately if they've done that. But I think, in my experience, maths in particular is a massive barrier for people, because we do have that as an entry requirement. And maths can be associated with kind of traumatic school experiences a lot. But I think it's almost like the more knowledge people have, sometimes the more it can put them off, because it's like, oh, and we've got to do this and that and that and that. But it's how it's managed, and it's how it's presented to people. And like I say, we always try and present things in a positive way.
Sithandekile, are you able to join us? Is your microphone live and working? It would seem not. I want to take us on to a slightly different angle on this, because I suspect that a number of people on this call will be from universities, and they will be wanting to learn from the experience that we share. And they will want to think how they could do that in their universities or improve what their universities do. Now, we know that universities are judged to a point on certain metrics, and those metrics have got to do with input qualifications, output qualifications, employment rates, and all sorts of things like that. And there is the tradition of grades and so on. Now, the approach which you, Fiona, and other contributors have shared is very much more personalised. It's about life experience, about critical thinking, it's about motivation and so on. And I'm sure there is within universities, or the more traditional bits of, some resistance or at least scepticism to how well this will maintain the successes of the universities. Now, are there any hints and tips that you can share with others on the call about how you might persuade the pro-vice chancellors and others who are sceptical that it's actually rather a good thing to do what you're doing?
That's a very interesting question, David. And I think we've definitely come across kind of negative responses over the years. However, I think that has changed with thinking within the university changing, and I would imagine it's across the UK, in that there's very much a move to be more inclusive, to hear other voices. I mean, at Leeds, we've had a whole decolonising the curriculum project that's been going on for quite a few years. So really welcoming the kind of diverse voices of people who've traditionally not been able to go to university. And I think along with that there's a lot more thinking about different ways of assessment. So we talk a lot about authentic assessment, and how people can demonstrate things that they know in a way that is kind of realistic and authentic. I think we have to work quite hard within the Lifelong Learning Centre. We're almost a campaigning group within the university for the benefits of mature students, and I'm sure that will be familiar to other people. But in many ways, I don't think mature students have, in some ways people have to prove themselves, but actually, I don't think mature students do any worse academically, and in many ways they do a lot better. And it's getting that message within to the rest of the university. I mean, we did some research not that long ago which showed that parent students do really well, almost better than the standard cohort, because they have all those incredible organizational skills and everything else. So I think it's getting that message out there in lots of different ways. The other thing that does help is finding the right institutional drivers, I suppose, isn't it? And with the Office for Students now prioritising mature students as a key group of people they would like more of in universities, that's helping as well. But yeah, like I said, we've been doing this work for a long time. Sometimes it's been a key priority and sometimes it hasn't. But I think it's trying to get the positive messages out in as many different channels as you can. But I'm sure that, yeah.
I think you're absolutely right there. There have been some questions about the impact of the three schemes that we've heard about. Some suggestions or questions about, how successful a number of people going on to things, their success subsequently, and so on. What occurs to me is that maybe universities are not featuring enough the successes of these students, the individual case study. I was this, I did that, I now have the confidence to do this, and for 3 years I've been leading, and what have you. Now, I know that's difficult because you're competing with the whole of the sort of traditional intake of universities. But what are your thoughts about what more universities might do to promote the success and the value of these schemes?
Oh, that's a good. Shall I answer that again? I'm realizing I'm
please.
just
I, th- I,
answering
I
the
think
questions.
I think you are only the only speaker with whom we are still in communication on
Right.
this call.
Yes, Sibanda does send there is a massive hailstorm currently going on in Bulawayo, which has affected her internet quite significantly. So I believe she is dropping in and out and can't quite
Yeah.
hear what's
Anyway, Fiona, your thoughts on
I
that?
will. I will say sorry for talking all the time.
No.
We've also got a bit of a chainsaw next door, so hopefully that's not going to impact at all. So yeah, so how universities can promote mature students, was that your question, David?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I think it is recognizing all the amazing things that mature students bring to the learning, and how having, and so many tutors say they love having mature students within their groups because the level of discussion is often a lot higher, and the mature student will motivate, perhaps, and no disrespect to younger students, but may motivate the younger students to kind of participate and do well. And I suppose it's celebrating that in any way. So, I mean, I think we have, in the Lifelong Learning Centre, we've become a lot more aware of our colleagues across the university who work in communications. So we are aware if we have events, we do need to ask our internal communications and maybe our corporate communications colleagues if they would like to cover things. I think but on the other hand, it shouldn't be all down to the people who are the mature students, should it? It should be, in an ideal world, across the university. I think celebrating and linking into any other maybe regional or national celebration or awards or organisation that's going on alongside that. But it's definitely is part of the shift, I think, that UK universities, in my opinion, are kind of taking at the moment, to be more inclusive and accepting and valuing different voices and experiences.
A comment and then a question. Back in my career, I had the privilege of setting up the British University in Dubai, and there was a time when, of course, it was not known, its reputation was not known, and for anybody coming to study there, it would have been a complete risk. All of that changed after 1 year when we had an open evening with the British ambassador, and I invited one student to speak. She was an extremely articulate student, and she gave an honest and at times impassioned account of the experience that she had had. Our fortunes changed after that presentation, because thereafter people were not listening to a body saying what it could do, but to a student saying what it had done. And, that just gives me the sense that the more stories that can be put out over social media and shared, the more people who are likely to say, I could do that too, and at least give them the confidence to get on to the first step. I don't know, does that ring true with you?
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think for our group of mature student volunteers who I mentioned earlier, we have perhaps a group of maybe 30 or 40 mature students within the university who have often come through our pre-entry outreach routes, and they will come and talk to groups about their experience. So that can be an incredibly powerful thing for somebody who's not sure about education, to hear from somebody with a similar background. But equally, they are the people who can speak truth to power. They can talk to the vice chancellor, or they can talk to the senior management. We have a mature students advisory board within the university, which is supported by the Lifelong Learning Centre, but they are a really powerful group of mature students who are listened to, I think. And whenever there's a student, we have internal conference, like a student education conference, having students who are speaking is absolutely the most powerful thing. So no, I completely agree with you about that.
Okay, my last point is one which goes back to what Camilla shared with us, and the fact that people from all disciplines and so on came together on her program. And just looking ahead at things like the fourth and fifth industrial revolution and the kind of people that would be needed to do jobs that uniquely people can do, not machines. It strikes me that what she is doing there, what Sheffield are doing there, is very, very far-sighted, because the ability to think outside disciplines, to join things up, to appreciate other perspectives. I mean, these are all skills which machines can't do, humans can do, and which will be needed in the future. And we as universities think about disciplines and subjects and so on. I'm not so sure that people thinking about coming into higher education think in that way. They may think in terms of a more general contribution, a multidisciplinary contribution, and so on. And I think what Camilla and Sheffield are doing there is potentially enormously powerful for the individuals. And I think that raises all sorts of questions about what we are promoting for for any learners, really. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, it's a very important question. I think, yeah, just the kind of uncertainty about the future can put people off going to university as well, thinking, well, that job I wanted to do may not exist. I think it's also thinking, yeah, how to kind of work with people, as Camilla was saying, to think critically, to think creatively, and in an interdisciplinary way. And I kind of think the more, I suppose, it's such a journey, isn't it? Like, we often meet people who are like, well, I want to go to university because I want to, I don't know, be a nurse, and I know I can get a job at the end of that, and that's my aim. But once people start kind of exploring all the different options, and having more understanding about what you can gain from university, people's ideas change. So we recently had somebody on JumpStart who started off wanting to be a midwife, and now she's applied for our Arts and Humanities Foundation year to go into English literature because she loves English literature. She's found out that that was something she'd always wanted to do but had ruled it out. And it's been kind of working with her to look at the benefits of doing that, the transferable skills, like you say, the kind of critical thinking, and how that can be applied to the job market in the future, and how AI, what AI does and doesn't cover. So I think it's working with people step by step and informing them. And universities have got a real duty to do that, to work with people and kind of think about AI in a critical way. And we're trying to kind of think about how we embed that in all our outreach work as well. So yeah, it is a risk, I think, for people, isn't it? But then it's almost like once you start on that pathway, you have the opportunity to inform yourself more about what the possibilities are.
That's great. Now, just in drawing this to a close, we do, of course, have a wonderful example in the United Kingdom at the moment of a lady who trained to be a nurse, became a very senior nurse, and has just been enthroned as the first female Archbishop of Canterbury. And the sort of transition and development of skills through all of that. And I know it's quite a high level model, but nevertheless, I think it makes some of the points that we've been talking about. Also, I think with full credit to Imogen, I think WAHEN has proved itself again, because with dealing with the power outage in South Africa, and now dealing with hailstorms and so on in Zimbabwe, we have got to the end of this. And the words of thanks for the speakers were going to be mine, but they've actually come up from a participant who says, thank you to all the speakers for sharing so much packed into the presentation. And that's how it feels to me. So my last words are firstly just to acknowledge Graham Atherton, who is the director of WAHEN, for his vision, for his leadership, and for all the things that it has done. There is, of course, a huge amount still to do, but I think we've seen really good evidence today of what is being done, and I hope that will be inspirational to others. And just to quote from the website of WAHEN, it's my view that this webinar, and indeed everything that WAHEN is doing, can achieve a world where access and success in higher education is available to all. So thank you for joining us. I hope you've been inspired by this, and let me now hand to Imogen.